Alright guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel, and we will read again my theory in my thesis. So yeah, let's just continue for part 2. Well, you can watch part 1 in previous video. So yeah, let's just read it. Let's just continue to read. Each country, uh, uh, we will continue here because we already read until here this paragraph. So yeah, it's it's continue lagi. Each country has a different set of institutions to manage its public diplomacy strategy. Okay, some are part of government, others are independent. Each will have its own mission and priorities, but in order to practice in public diplomacy effectively, it is it is important to examine the institution as a spectrum. Gimana cara bacanya kita? Wait, I want to read it in correct way. Spectrum. 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 Yeah, I thought this is a British accent. So, but um, in American, it's said spectrum too. Let's continue and see whether there are gaps between the institution which are not yet filled. Okay. In chapter 7, we in chapter 7 we examine the UK institutions in this way to set out some lessons for how the spectrum can be improved. But first, let us examine the three dimensions. Dimension 1, news management. The first dimension is management communication on day-to-day issues, reflecting the growing need to align communication with traditional diplomacy. The need to align communications with traditional diplomacy is described by the U.S. diplomat Christopher Ross, who was brought 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 back to retirement to mastermind public diplomacy with Muslim world. I conceive of public diplomacy as being the public face of traditional diplomacy. Traditional diplomacy seeks to advance the interests of the United States through private exchange with foreign governments. Public diplomacy seeks to support uh, traditional diplomacy by addressing non-governmental audience. In addition to governmental audience, both mass and elite. It works very much in coordination with in parallel to the traditional diplomatic efforts. Uh, effort, yeah, effort, effort, effort. Okay, let's continue. This implies that embassies must plan public diplomacy strategies for all of the main issues they deal with and explore communications angles of all their activities. Of wait, this is not of this job is complicated by the fact that it is increasingly difficult to isolate different news stories for different audience, foreign and domestic. Although most TV, radio, and print media are still created with a national or local audience in mind, their networks of foreign correspondents will ensure that that message do get transferred from one region to another. As Secretary of State Colin Powell put it during Desert Storm, we really were seeing this 24/7 phenomenon, at least in my judgment, for the first time. I used to tell of the members of my staff, remember, when we are out there on television communicating instantaneously around the world, we are talking to five audience. One, the reporters who ask the questions, important audience. Second audience, the American people who are watching. The third audience, 170 capitals who may have an interest in what the subject is. Fourth, you are talking to your enemies. It is unique situation to know that your enemy was getting the clearest indication of your intentions by watching you on television. At the same time, you were giving the message. And fifth, you were talking to the troops. Their lives were on the line. Paradoxically, so-called domestic stories are like race riots in Oldham or Oldham and Burnley, or the outbreak of food and mob in Britain, or the success of Le Pen what is Le Pen in French elections, are often as important as foreign policy stories in making an impact on others. Alastair Campbell, the director of communications in 10 Downing Street, described this vividly in interview with the authors. In relation to foot and mouth, there was in collisions between domestic and foreign audience. Part of our message, once we focus on it as a crisis management issue being led from the top, was that the prime minister was involved. Sleeves rolled up, talking about the farmers regularly. I admit that this didn't cross my mind. You get this dramatic. These dramatic pictures of the prime minister wearing yellow suits and walking around a farmyard. And in America, we think, Christ, he's got to wear a yellow suit and he's prime minister, because that's all they're seeing. Our media will only ever give narrow context. Go further abroad, it gets even narrower. And so that is the kind of thing you've got to really think carefully about, as well as unforeseen crises. There are predictable domestic events which come up every year and can play out badly in other countries. Examples include the release of British crime survey, which frequently results in erroneous stories such as crime in London is worse than New York, or the start of Norwegian whaling season, which results in a increase of negative press coverage around the world. For Norwegian public diplomacy strategy on Orwelling and other issues, see Appendix 2. Don't the domestic department involved in these issues need to provide the foreign service with the notice and the information they need to contextualize the stories. Strategy communication, strategy communication. Governments have traditionally been good at communicating their stance on particular issues, but less effective at managing perceptions of country as a whole. One of the reasons for this is the fact that different institutions have been responsible for dealing with politics, trade, tourism, investment, and cultural relations. But on many issues, it is totally message which people get about the UK, uh, which will determine how they relate to us. This is the second of dimension of the public diplomacy, the strategic message we promote about the UK. Sir Michael Butler, who was previously the British permanent representative to EU, argues that perception of the country generally will shape the diplomatic environment. We need to have a broad image which is favorably perceived in the key countries where we are based. If your government is perceived as self-interested, reactionary, and unhelpful, it will seriously hamper your ability to get your way, as the US is finding that the moment. And unless there is a lot of work done over a long period of time to create a more positive context, all attempts at communications will be viewed with added suspicion. An official in White House confessed to me, "We haven't made any attempts to communicate with ordinary Arabs unless we are bombing them or imposing sanctions on them. I would I wouldn't I would I wouldn't like to I wouldn't like us if I were them." In economic realm, the power of national perception is even clearer. Wait a second. As products, investment, environments, and tourist destinations become more alike, it is becoming difficult to differentiate on self in terms of quality alone. Tapping into a deeper sense of identity can help companies differentiate themselves from their competition. Opinion surveys, opinion surveys show that three-quarters of Fortune 500 companies actually see national identity or place of origin as one of the key factors that influence their decision about buying goods and service. Many customers, many customers of companies have built on this insight. In the 19 in the 90 in the 1990s, the German H A E G Allgemein Electric. Oh, wait. This is I should read it with German accent. Wait, this is more interest. It is will be interested if we read it in German accent. Where is the German? Ah, allgemeine elektrische Gesellschaft. Let's continue. Okay. Run, run, publicity campaign in Britain, which was based on around redefining their initials their initials as advanced engineering from Germany. The centerpiece, the centerpiece of their advertising campaign was that it was a German company, a national image that represented brand quality. Strategy communication is different from relationship building. It is it is it is a set of activities more like a political campaign, setting a number of strategic message and planning series of activities over a year or so reinforce them. This is what Charlotte Beers Charlotte, well, what is it? Whatever. Charlotte Beers describes as a magnification. An impressive example was delivered by the team in ECA. Wow. When they arranged to send stunning photographs of Ground Zero by Joel Meyerowitz to open 20 countries. What I appreciate so much about this program is that it gives us an audience beyond the government officials and elites. The young and people in smaller towns, as the exhibit travels to cities around these countries and reach others through very good press coverage. That's what we mean by magnifying the results from a single event. It is important for all public diplomacy organizations to have a stake in totally message which are put out about the country and a sense of how they can cooperate on promoting them. Chris Powell, the chairman of advertising company BMP DDB Needham, argues that this message must be simple. Have very few favorable one message. People are exposed to 1,000 messages every day. They probably fall only a tiny fraction of this. The task is to cut through this fog by imagination and repetition. A contrast between diplomacy and advertising is that in advertising an enormous amount of work goes into the preparation, boiling ideas down into very simple concepts, and then repeating that message over and over again until we are all truly bored with it. When you are so bored with it that you feel like giving up, the listener may just have begun to register the message. So stick at it. The drink drive campaign has been going for years, and is as relevant today as it has ever been, because the message is simple, clear, and logical. But wait a second. But to what extent it is possible to have a single message that unites all the different players, from the British tourist authority to foreign office, and how relevant will it be to a different audience, from citizens in Middle East to uh, potential investors in Australia. Many countries have shown the power of having a clear national narrative which can unite the different stakeholders. The most famous example is probably Spain, where Mirror's España image signaled a determination to shape the ghost of Franco and, become a modern European democracy. There are two key dangers in not creating a clear narrative. One is the idea of this discordant message. In the case of Britain, it would appear strange if British Council heavily promote the UK as a modern, multi-ethnic, and creative island, while the British Tourist Authority simply reiterate, reiterate, iterated, iterated. What the heck is this? Wait a second. Iterated. 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 Where is reiterated? Reiterated. Reiterated. What? Where's the reiterated? Oh yeah, like it. Reiterated national stereotypes about tradition, ceremony, and history. One solution to this conundrum that has been proposed to make a virtue of the paradox and develop an identity around the idea of dynamic tradition, playing on a binary identity which was famously described by lifestyle guru Peter York as punk and pageantry. It is, however, important. It is, however, important to remember that there are givens in how we are seen abroad. If the dynamic tradition positioning is adopted, the survey data shows that our promotional efforts will need to be weight dynamic weight towards the dynamic end of the spectrum, as that is the area which people are most skeptical about. Wait a second. There is a danger in this idea of articulate positioning. When Robin Cook established the panel 2000 task force to advise him on the projection of Britain overseas, it debated long and hard which message should be promoted before deciding on a list of 5 messages: reliability, integrity, creativity, and innovation, Britain's heritage, free speech, and fair play, and openness to the world, which roughly corresponded uh, corresponded to the interests of main public diplomacy institutions and allowed the different partners to carry on performing as they had done before. I have written elsewhere about the fact that perceptions of Britain are out of date and have to set out a strategy to attempt to turn them around in Britain. The report, which launched an international furor about rebranding Britain, but there are also pitfalls for any country surrounding national branding. Many people, wait a second, I want to little check. Okay, let's continue. Many people have attacked the idea that something as complex as a national identity can be solved in the same way as a soap powder. This is obviously true and clumsy attempts to market countries, even in specific sectors such as tourism, run the risk of reducing the excitement and diversity of a national culture to a homogeneous antiseptic commodity. The clearest example of this attempt to sell beach holidays, one image of white beach and some blue sea, is particularly indistinguishable from another. When this happens, the net effect of branding is not to add value, but to detract from it as the key differentiator in this sort of commodified market will be price. People have also pointed out that the only way to fully manage a national brand is to have a totalitarian state, as most the impressions that people get of a country come from things outside government control, such as meeting British people, buying British products and services, watching films, and reading newspapers, etc. Because the carriers of the brand are so diverse, an attempt to sell a country that does not reflect the reality of that country is doomed and undermined by people's actual experience. This reflects the fact that the most successful perception changing campaigns have been carried through by countries that had undergone dramatic and genuine change. For example, Spain after Franco, or Ireland in the 1990s, and rooted in a commonly owned national store. Wait a second, my throat quite sorry guys. Wait a second, let me catch my breath. Okay, let's continue. Relationship building. The third dimension of the public diplomacy is the most long-term, developing lasting relationships with key individuals through scholarship, exchange, training, seminars, conference, building a real and virtual networks, and giving people access to media channel. This differs from the usual diplomatic practice of nurturing contacts, as it is about developing relationships between pairs, politicians, special advisor, business people, cultural entrepreneurs, and or academics. This can take place across the three spheres of the public diplomacy and is aimed at creating a common analysis of issues and giving people clearer idea of the motivations and factors affecting their actions, so that by the time they come to discussing individual issues, a lot of the background work has been done already. It is important not just to develop relationship, but ensure that the experience which people take away are positive, that there is follow up afterwards. Building relationship is very different from selling message because it involves a genuine exchange and means that people are given words and all picture of the country. Research by British Tourist Authority showed that people who come to the UK invariably report that they leave the country with more positive impression of it than when they arrive. Joseph Nye makes this point eloquently. It is not that the student goes back comforted, but they go back with a much more sophisticated idea of our strengths and weaknesses. You complexify their thinking, so they will go back and critical of American policy on Israel, or they will go back and critical of American policy on capital punishment. But they will have a deeper understanding of why it is Americans treat gun control differently than Europeans. This may grow out of the fact that I spent 2 years as a student in Britain right out of college. It took me about a month to realize, my God, these people are strange. That the end of 2 years, I thought, I thought I can see Britain's faults, and I can see Britain's greatness, and they are all mixed up together. I think it was a Britain's interest that I would develop a nuanced view of Britain rather than either an Anglophilic idealization or an Anglophobic characterization. And I think that aspect of soft power is probably most effective. Charlotte Beers, the Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy in the United States, points the staggering success of Fulbright scheme, which has taken up by over 200 current or former heads of state coming from the private sector. It's hard to find anything comparable to the share of productivity of our Fulbright and international physical exchange. The 200 $237 million was spent in 2002 for some to 25,000 exchange is magnified by 18, 80,000 volunteers in the US, and matching support from many countries like Germany and Japan. Considering that some 50% of the leaders of the international coalition were once exchange physical. This has got to be the best buy in the government. Relationship building has traditionally been seen as a process that must be conducted face to face and on a personal level. The most effective instruments for building enduring relationships are scholarship, visits, and other exchange programs that require complex planning and administration, and come a high unit cost. But as a societies become more open and pluralistic, particularly particularly in large transitional economies where the target audience number several millions, this traditional mode of working is unlikely to reach the critical mass of people necessary to significantly affect the opinions and choices of those audience. To what extent will the new information and communication technologies enable the relationship building process to be scaled up to include much larger groups of people? In India, the British Council has identified a successor generation target audience of 7 million people aged between 20 and 35, nearly 70% of whom live in 25 cities, whose profiles suggest that at different stage of their education and early working lives, they would be receptive to council's information and educational service. At present, the council operates in 11 cities and at any one time provides service to about 120,000 members and visitors to their libraries and information centers. The council is now planning to use new approaches to online and distance learning and especially develop online library to expand its service to a much larger clientele. The quality of engagement with this larger audience will not be of the same order that has as that achieved through more traditional and expensive face-to-face programs, which will continue to play an important role in India. However, by increasing to at least 300,000 over a 3-year period, the number of people in regular contact with the council, either face-to-face or online, the council believes that it will achieve the critical mass necessary to affect attitudes and choices among the wider target groups in the key cities. The Japan and Exchange Teaching JET program. Well, we already read the main of my topic in my theory. So yeah, we already done, to be honest. But I want to read it. This example too, because my thesis is talking about scholarship students. So yeah, I want to read it for preparation for my thesis defense. Let's read it. The Japan Exchange of Teaching JET and Teaching of JET program invites young college and university graduates from overseas to participate in international exchange and foreign language education throughout Japan. The program has earned a high reputation both in Japan and overseas for its efforts in human and cultural exchange and has become one of the largest cultural exchange programs in Japan. The program offers college and university graduates the opportunity to serve in local government organizations as well as public and private junior and senior high school. Began in 1987 with, with the cooperation of the governments of the participating countries. With the program, has grown up year by year. The number of JET participants who are currently working in Japan has reached over 6,000, and number of ex-JET participants from approximately 40 countries total around 30,000. The JET program also includes a great deal of follow-up and network building. For example, the JET Alumni Association is intended to strengthen the bonds of friendship developed by former participants. With over 44 local chapters in 11 countries, it currently enjoys a membership of over 10,000 individuals. So that's all for the main theory. Maybe I will continue or maybe not, because I already read the main topic of my theory, and that is enough. And if I want to continue, maybe I just want to continue as as additional knowledge, not for my thesis. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. My throat is already thirsty, or what is it? Need some water. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to subscribe, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.